Seeking adventure and salty pirates, huh? Ah, you've come to the proper place.
Today, we'll be looking at all 5 of Disney Parks' Pirates of the Caribbean attractions from around the globe and seeing what about them is different from the original version found here at Disneyland.
Now sit close together and keep your ready hands and board. That be the best way to repel boarders. And mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tales.
Please like, subscribe, and stick around.
Disneyland is your land.
He comes seeking adventure at your pirates, eh?
Make the jump to life, Phil.
Today's journey on our swashbuckling adventure starts at Disneyland from New Orleans Square. And in many ways, this video explores these rides from the perspective of a Disneyland regular, comparing the newer versions to the original and noting what is different.
The original version of the ride, and very much our favorite, is at Disneyland. This ride has changed a lot over the years, but still retains the main systems, feel, and look as it did when it opened in 1967.
The ride symbolizes a lot of things to us. For one, it was the last ride that Mr. Disney worked on before he passed away, the same year that it opened. It was also the first attraction to have a themed restaurant. It was groundbreaking for its many effects and animatronics. And we just think it's an amazing example of a company that thinks big, thinking bigger. It is very much the largest attraction project that Disney had ever undertaken up to that point, and it really defined what Disney Imagineering was capable of, exceeding even its own expectations.
It set the story of the ride, that of a band of pirates in the West Indies Islands around the Caribbean Sea in the 17th and 18th centuries with the saga of their voyages, troubles, and exploits.
There are 4 versions of the ride that are fairly similar, with Disney opening one up every decade starting in the 60s. And there is a completely modern and different version of the ride that opened in Shanghai Disneyland in 2016.
The original Disneyland version in California is unique for transporting guests from New Orleans Square to the Caribbean islands. It rides past the original Blue Bayou restaurant and down 2 drops. As you travel underneath New Orleans Square, you see that this version of the ride takes its time, sets its scene, and creates a mood we've only found at Disneyland.
In the Disneyland version, you encounter skeleton pirates first, trapped in Dead Man's Grotto, and there are several scenes including the captain's quarters and the tavern and the treasure room, and you see them before the memory of them becomes more real. We literally see a pirate that is half skeleton and half flesh to help usher us into the land of the living. After this, we see live pirates, Captain Barbossa aboard the Wicked Wench attacking a fort on the island of Port Dorado, trying to find Captain Jack Sparrow.
Of course, when it opened, the ride did not contain characters from the hit film series, but it has been regularly updated over the years, most recently in 2016. The ride is 15 minutes long, a full 5 minutes longer than any other version, and has some of the most effective timing of any ride, allowing the story and your imagination the time to really soar and create an epic adventure.
The version at Walt Disney World opened with the park in 1971, and it's set in Adventureland. It skips over New Orleans and just starts right in Puerto Rico. The ride is guarded by the Caribbean watchtower Torre del Sol, and it's housed in a golden Spanish fort called the Castillo del Moro, inspired by the Castillo de San Felipe del Moro and the old San Juan in Puerto Rico.
The queue is more extensive than the one in New Orleans Square. It has a pirate-themed side and a soldier-themed side, and perhaps most famously has a couple of chess-playing skeletons locked in an eternal stalemate. There is no dedicated dining location at the Walt Disney World version. The first half of the actual ride is really truncated comparatively, with only a few skeleton scenes included.
After seeing the few skeleton scenes, you go down the 1 drop into an impressive reveal of the Wicked Wench, the giant 3-masted ship, and we do think seeing the ship this way right after the drop is really impressive and theatrical, but we do like the way that the Disneyland ride kind of sneaks up on the scene. We think that feels more real, and you'll see both versions used moving forward.
From this point on, the ride is almost identical to the Anaheim version in most respects. The ending of the ride is different, showing you Jack Sparrow in the treasure room just after the scene with the prisoners and the dog, and having guests disembark on the lower level and taking a treadmill back up to the park and never riding up a lift hill.
Tokyo Disneyland was the first major Disney park to be created outside of the US, and it included Pirates of the Caribbean opening in 1983. But the ride itself is almost a carbon copy of the Anaheim version, the original here at Disneyland.
It even has the Blue Bayou restaurant, which is noticeably larger than the California version, though everything else is there, from the banjo-playing man to the fireflies. And, like at Disneyland, you drop in a Dead Man's Cove underneath the Talking Skull to a familiar series of scenes featuring skeleton pirates with Paul Frees saying, "Dead men tell no tales."
The only things missing that we noticed are the lift hill back up the end as you disembark at the bottom, and the very first cavern between the drops where you hear Yo-Ho, Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me for the first time. And it does not have the 2016 update seen in Disneyland introducing Pirate Red. Otherwise, it is so similar in look, scale, and feel, using the original soundtrack and voices for almost everything, that you might actually forget where you are.
Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland Paris is really an impressive and worthy version of the attraction, opening in 1992 with lots of unique features. Set in Adventureland, guests enter a huge and impressive battle-scarred Spanish fort. Once inside, guests eventually make it to the Blue Lagoon, similar in purpose to the Blue Bayou, but much more tropically themed. Boats float past a wonderful restaurant, Captain Jack's, in the first show scene, much like in Anaheim.
In many ways, the ride is similar to Disneyland's, but a little bit backwards from that story, and still very unique. After passing through the Blue Lagoon and under a shipwreck, you go into the fort, up a lift hill, which is well purposed as the cargo hauler for the fort, and you head deep inside its stone chambers. Very cool. This version of the ride uses multiple levels inside a massive show building, so they're able to tease glimpses of scenes to come. Here you see the naval battle far away up ahead. Pretty cool.
As you go through the fort, you see familiar scenes of live pirates like the prisoners and the dogs, but the animatronics are noticeably better with smoother and more realistic movements. Like Anaheim, this version has 2 waterfall drops. You exit the besieged fort through a hole in the wall blasted by a cannonball and drop right into the pirate ship Inferno attacking the fort. It is a stunning reveal.
From here, the ride is a bit more recognizable as the boats take a familiar right turn and head into the town. The same show scenes from the U.S. rides are present with the dunked mayor and the red-headed lady and the singing donkey, but it does add in a swashbuckling sword duel to the mix that's a lot of fun. And the show buildings are huge. They seem larger and the scenery is very impressive.
And this is where you go backwards. At this point, you'll go over the second drop through an armory full of gunpowder into a series of caverns where we see a Captain Barbossa animatronic who transforms from a human into an undead zombie in front of our eyes before we drift past Captain Jack in the treasure room and up a lift hill under the well-known talking skull to disembark.
The ride is amazing, and the fort is really cool, and it does feel like you spend more time outside in a larger show building and less time in smaller caves on this one, and we really like the 2 drops. But compared to Disneyland, the ending is rushed after all that well-timed exposition. But overall, even though it's a bit shorter than Disneyland's, it's still a great ride.
Okay, this version of Pirates of the Caribbean is unlike any of the other versions. The Pirates of the Caribbean Battle for the Sunken Treasure is the newest version and first opened in Treasure Cove in 2016 and enjoys cutting-edge technology and a completely different and unique ride system.
Unlike every other version that uses a tracked boat with gravity-fed water propulsion, the Shanghai version uses magnetic induction, allowing Disney to control the direction of the boats, their speed, and it's a whole new world, and we're going to walk you through it.
The attraction starts in a similar way with guests boarding their vehicles from a fort, but from the beginning notes of the music, it's evident that this ride was made after the Pirates of the Caribbean film series became one of the most profitable and popular franchises in Disney history.
Guests board their vehicles inside the fort before passing under an archway with a familiar talking skull. Then they head out into a large tropical area which has on the right Barbossa's Bounty, a restaurant which is essentially the equivalent of the Blue Bayou, but it's a counter-service location.
Once past the fort, you enter a series of excellent cave systems inhabited by skeleton pirates with some familiar scenes, including skeleton prisoners trying to coax some keys from a skeleton dog. And it's noticeable that some of the scenes are way more violent than we've seen up to this point, particularly the pirate being stabbed in the back.
Next, we see a pretty impressive animatronic of Jack Sparrow transform using precise projection mapping technology from a familiar skeleton at the helm of a wrecked ship into a real person who talks to us. And from here on, the ride is just unrecognizable to the previous versions, but absolutely epic. Using projection technology and other things, we are transported to the bottom of the ocean, with our vehicles turning as they will.
We see enormous underwater sea creatures like the Kraken swim overhead and the wrecks of many pirate ships which we begin to pass through. One thing that really impresses us about this ride is the ceiling is not just kept in the dark, but it's used as a projection surface so you can look up and see the surface of the water.
There's a few impressive animatronics and really amazing props as you pass by piles of ancient treasure and into Davy Jones's ship, the Flying Dutchman, where you see Davy Jones. And this animatronic is really amazing. They really pulled off the tentacles. And then he sends you and all of the large ships on the bottom of the ocean up to the surface to find and battle Jack Sparrow. It's a really impressive surfacing effect. Once on the surface, you find yourself in the middle of a moving, full-scale, multi-ship naval battle, passing between two ships firing broadside at each other while watching other ships ram each other in the distance. Like, wow.
Here, the ride vehicles turn backwards to enter a ship through a giant blasted hole to find Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones sword fighting climactically. Of course, Jack manages to escape but cause a big explosion which sends us down a pretty big and long drop backwards in the dark.
But that just about wraps up the ride. As we turn around and in our final show scenes, we see Jack Sparrow has escaped, and he finally sings a round of Yo-Ho, Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me as you head to the unloading station.
For us, Pirates of the Caribbean is the Disney ride that really captured our imaginations and made us want to know more about Imagineering and how they could pull off such magic. It really made us interested in how one can blend story and theatrically staged effects to create such a unique, immersive, and new experience.
And no matter which version you ride, you are on one of the best theme park attractions in the world and immersed in one of the best worlds Disney Park has ever created.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you real soon, Mouseketeers.
See you real soon.